Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are really excited to host this conversation with two special guests who have over 40 years of experience in the maintenance world. This is a great opportunity to learn from the experience of two industry veterans on how to make the most out of your CMMS. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get some Q&A from the audience as well. You'll notice here on the slide that we've got showed here, we are recording this webinar. So if you are not able to stay for the whole thing, we are going to share this out with you afterwards. And also for folks who aren't able to attend. So don't worry if you aren't able to stay for the whole thing, we've got you covered. We've also got an opportunity here. You'll notice on your Zoom platform here while you're watching, there's a Q&A button on that control panel. If you hit that, you're gonna be able to ask any questions that you'd like for us to answer. And we're gonna do our best to make sure we get to all of those. Please feel free to make this interactive. We want this to be valuable for you all. A good use of your time and make sure that we're able to address those. And that said, if you have any other questions at all, feel free to poke us in the chat. We've also got my colleague here on the line, making sure that we're not going to miss anything as well. So without further ado, welcome to Lessons from the Floor, how to make the most out of CMMS. We're here with Joe Kuhn and Chris Wilcox. And go ahead. My name is Nick Haas. I'm one of the co-founders here at MaintainX. Joe, I'd love you to go ahead and give yourself a brief introduction, let folks know who you are.
Yeah, my name is Joe Kuhn. I worked for a company called Alcoa for 32 years. I started off as an engineer in maintenance, quickly went into leadership roles. I had 3 plant manager jobs in my career. Also, I was the director of reliability and maintenance globally for Alcoa for 4 years. I retired 4 years ago, really to try to make an impact in the reliability and maintenance space on how to create a reliability culture. That was one of the things that I really propelled my career as working with assets and maintenance teams to drive that reliability culture. And so I started a YouTube channel. I've written a book, and I speak and love to try to be an evangelist for reliability and maintenance, and how one of the critical tools is your CMMS.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. We're excited to have you. Our other panelist here today joining us is none other than Chris Wilcox. Chris, go ahead and give yourself a brief introduction.
Sure. Chris Wilcox, similar to Joe, a little over 30 years of being in the maintenance field. Started off doing industrial, got away from that for a little bit, and did a retail stint, taking care of a major retailer, and then went back to industrial. Now I'm in the chemical industry, taking care of all these fun chemical plants. Interested to see what questions you guys have, and hopefully we can, Joe and I can share a thing or two about what we've learned.
Fantastic. So your CMS has changed a little bit from your beginning of y'all's career to where we are today, to say the least, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. One of the core questions that I want to kind of jump right into is why is a CMMS critical to running an efficient team? This is clearly something that has been around a while, and there have been a lot of different approaches to implementing these things. Why does that make your team more efficient? And kind of start there at a high level.
Yeah. Chris, you want to take that?
Sure. So there's many ways, there's many reasons. One of the ones that I think most people can relate to is visibility of your data. So we've all experienced paper versions of preventative maintenance programs, work order systems. That's nice, but what I've learned in my 3 years of using CMMS is what I can actually do with the data when it's held digitally. So I could tell you today, I just looked just for the heck of it. As of today, this year, we've done 16,441 work orders. That's nice as a number, but a couple things kind of highlighted to me right away, even the first time I noticed I could do that. I never knew what work we did a year really before, because it's all on paper. Who's really going to take the time to go through those binders? I mean, maybe somebody does, but I never found time to go through the binders and count all of the work orders that we do. I also can view and see where our work orders are helping and where they're not. Again, that could be done through paper, but it's not as easy to do. I could pull these numbers pretty quickly now. But yeah, it's at its basis, I think it makes it easier for you to add value to the data you're collecting. I often talk about checking boxes versus actually completing something that's worth something. But as far as my team loves it. So I'm in a management position, but I'm still a working manager. So I don't do nearly as many work orders as they do. I tend to do some of the more involved, most of the emergency calls. But my guys have the ability now to foresee what they have to do. They can make some decisions. I've educated and discussed with them some of the decisions I can leave to them. There's definitely things that are planned that they have to do at a certain time, but mainly they're not waiting for me to tell them what to do. I'm on a meeting right now, sharing some time with you fine folks, and if something happens, I can quickly look down at my phone and I can see what it is without them interrupting. I can send a quick note back saying, hey, okay, this is what you need to do, or call this person. Accountability is huge. So I like the idea that most CMMSs give you an audit trail, day-to-day audit trail. There's definitely opportunity for people to pencil whip paper. I mean, there's equal opportunity to pencil whip CMMS, but it's easier for somebody to see. So if I'm looking at work orders come in and I see that it's only taking a minute to fill something out, I need to have a conversation. And an acceptable conversation in the chemical industry is that you were in a room that's intrinsically protected and you could not operate your phone within that room. And I will accept that as an answer, because the time that you record will reflect what I should be seeing as far as my knowledge of what time it takes to complete a given task. But if it's happening everywhere, well, I might have to dig in on that. I think you can tell already what I'm kind of focusing my discussion on is visibility.
Visibility, accountability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's an important thing that this is. It's a view that this gives you that you didn't previously have.
Yeah, excellent. From my vantage point, when I look at a CMMS, it shows me where I'm spending time and money and resources. It really just, it shows that. As an executive, you and your team put together a plan for the year, for 5 years, whatever it happens to be, on your reliability journey, and you need to know where you're investing. Is it all in reactive maintenance? Is it proactive maintenance? One of the things that we pushed at my site was, when I came there, we were 1% of our work came from condition monitoring. And I had a challenge out there, everybody, to get to 15%. So planners started putting on their work list, doing these routes and doing the follow-up from predictive maintenance. It was something we were actively trying to push, so you can watch those trends and know where you're investing. You want to get really good at firefighting, which never works, or do you want to gradually start in, if you're 100% reactive maintenance, maybe your goal is 10% planned maintenance for the next month. Maybe it's 15. So it kind of shows you where you're spending your time and money, and it's kind of lets you know whether you're winning and losing. To me, the ultimate, once you do the basics of the tactical working, are you efficient? Are you working along your plan? It enables problem solving. I'm telling you, problem solving is where you need to get to in maintenance. Everything, the word maintenance means maintain, okay? If you want to get any better, you got to problem solve. And a CMMS is just a pile of data to say, hey, wait a second. We don't need to do an RCA on that pump that failed last week that everybody's yelling about and the president of the company's yelling at. It failed last week. It lasted 30 years, and the previous one lasted 30 years. That's not what we're about. Well, it's not root cause. Let's not come up with 15 more PMs to do on that pump. Let's just replace it, move on, keep our eye on the ball. So the problem solving that comes from CMMS is where I'm trying to get to, because that's how you're going to improve.
I love to hear you say that. And I think, both of you have this really fantastic perspective of seeing the impact of that efficiency after that CMMS is put into place. You're thinking back to your journeys as you were getting started with some of these. I mean, if I'm starting with a CMMS today, I'm coming from a plant where things are a little fast and loose. Maybe we've got some spreadsheet tracking, maybe we've got some paper processes. How quickly do you see an impact? What makes it, is this something that you plug in, you just set it up in your system and now you're seeing those fantastic results and efficiencies? Or, what's your experience that in terms of how long does it take before you really start to feel a big lift, not, akin to what you're sort of talking about here on having this visibility and the accountability, getting some of this data that you can make root cause analysis decisions on? What are some of the ways that you can set the expectations for folks coming into this journey, for the first time?
Chris, you want to take that?
Yeah. So let me start by just quickly breaking down the way we started this off. I'm just talking about my site in particular. So I took a look at MaintainX online, immediately saw value, immediately saw a big improvement over previous things I've used, which would have been quite a few years prior. So I started off with getting it going, talking to my guys. They instantly bought into what I was talking about. So I started sending out reactive work orders right away. Now, why did I do that? Because I wanted to drive use of the system. A lot of this stuff, I mean, yes, you can absolutely force somebody to do it. They work for you. You can tell them you're going to do this, and that's just the way it is. In my opinion, you get adoptance comes better through agreements. It's an easy thing to show value. So we started running reactive work orders right away. We still ran our paper PMs as I had time to vet through them and decide what was the priority to add. In my situation, I added life, health, and safety things first. Those were identified through me and my team as the most important things to get up there right away. Then over time, couple weeks time, we started adding some of the other stuff based upon the equipment. And then at times you're gonna have like this moment of, hopefully you're interacting with your vendor, whoever you chose to purchase CMMS through, and they're helping you along as much as they can. But there's definitely a learning that happens. And I know for me, in fact, if you looked at some of the stuff I populated in the beginning of starting MaintainX to where I am today, it's very different. I learned some things along the way, and that's going to happen. But you want to make sure you go ahead.
On that note, I guess, what would you do differently? That if you now, knowing what you've done now, how would you take that?
So I might have. I think I would have spent a little more time considering locations and assets. So locations were kind of broad at first, and it's helpful to have them narrowed down a little bit. Assets at the beginning, we kind of grabbed the larger asset, so what you would consider the parent asset, and much later we've broke down into the more children of that asset. An example would be a tank. When we first rolled out, I had a tank as a tank, and then there was a note about what was on the tank, whether it was valves, radar gauges, whatever, vents. And then over time, I broke those all down into individual children underneath the parent. Why do you want to do that? Because if you don't separate things as individually as you can, some of your filtering data is just not there. So if I call a tank, and then I just in description leave the other attachments on that tank in the description only, I have no ability to figure out how many times have I had to mess with that vent, how many times have I PM'd that vent, am I getting any value out of the PMs I'm doing on that vent? You lose the ability to be able to search against that. So that's one thing I would have done differently. I probably would have populated my assets as full as I could before I started messing with repeatables.
Great.
An example, for me is current state at this plant was, we had a CMMS, we had all of our planned work in there, all of our PMs, but we had this big bucket, which nobody on this call does, of standing work orders that was to fix everything that's broken. And here's the plan stuff. So all the reactive work was just some blanket work order to charge to, and all the planned work, PMs, PDM, all, rebuilds, all that kind of stuff was in the CMS, and it came out with an individual work order. Well, we started saying every single task gets recorded, every emergency work. Well, within a month, we found that the electricians in this one area were doing 200 resets on the equipment a month. 200. We had no freaking idea this was happening. Okay. Then they went in. We had a reliability engineer, went in and just spent a couple days on it and put in a solution, gone. So you ask, how long does it take? I'm telling you, it depends on where you're at. If you're not recording anything with reactive maintenance and you're 40% of your work is reactive maintenance, it's going to be pretty quick.
You don't know what you don't know, right?
You don't know what you don't know. And so that was an example of something happening real quick. An example of something happening a little more over time is I actually reorganized the engineers. We had 10 engineers in this one area. We reorganized we had area responsibility to 8 and freed up 2 of them. So we divided up so it's just 8 areas instead of 10. Freed up these 2 people and said, your only job is to dive into the CMMS and find common causes, find trends, find things, and you're not allowed to go to we didn't let them go to the daily management meeting. And I made everybody promise you don't call them on the cell phone. These guys are just thinking strategic. They delivered $2 million in the first year.
Wow. That's amazing.
So it's now we had a lot of populated data at that time.
Sure.
But getting out of the chaos of the day is what a CMMS allows you to do. There's a lot of recency bias, amongst leaders like me. If a piece of equipment fails, I may yell and scream and say, I don't ever want to have that happen again. And you're just making an emotional decision, like say, hey, wait a second. Every year, Joe, our number 1 cost is lubrication. Our number 2 cost is motors. And your CMMS keeps you on that path and keeps you away from chasing all these other things by using data.
Makes sense. Yeah, I love that. I want to take a light step back here just to address a question we got from the audience here. It's sort of relevant. With Wolf Hendricks asked here, with so many CMMS out there, do you see any distinguishing factors making certain ones more helpful than others? And do you see the evaluation process being similar across companies?
Yeah, I do see it being similar across companies. I mean, I think there's some, the actual basis of how you set your CMMS, up may have some differences between industries, but I will tell you, one of the first things I looked at was ease of use. I mean, again, we have to get these people to use it.
Yeah. Keep going.
Then you have to identify the features you're looking to have, because when we decided on MaintainX, I trialed like 20 other available CMMS apps. Some good ones, some that we discovered through trial that it wasn't going to work for us. Simple as that. Doesn't make them bad. It just wasn't going to work for us. I think it's helpful to identify what you're looking to do. I often say, if you're on CMMS now, what is your system now not doing for you? Identify that first, and then does the potential new system check any of those boxes? Where do you see yourself being? If you've had CMMS experience in the past, is there something you can't see that you need to be able to see. And then, yeah, I think it's a good idea to trial some different stuff. Actually have those, schedule those meetings. I know that for me, myself, I was using MaintainX for a little bit without a trial, or no, I'm sorry, it was a trial, but without an actual salesperson or person from MaintainX getting with me. And I made some decent mistakes. I should have taken that opportunity to have that meeting.
For me, Chris is spot on. Ease of use. Okay, that I'm not sure whether that's 1 or 2 for me, but it's in the top 2. Okay, what I think about, and I'm sure if you're a leader and you're on this webinar, it's about the transition. It's hey, I don't care how great of a tool is if I can't transition to it. You know, because my organization is busy now. The engineers are busy, the technicians are busy, the supervisors, everybody's freaking busy. Okay. And if you tell me, hey, this is the greatest tool, I need half your people to work on it for a year and you can have it. And I'm like, I don't care. I need a tool that is very intuitive, easy to use, reduces administrative time. There's a lot of products out there that are good. Okay. But ease of transition means everything. That's what I love about MaintainX. It's how do you go from where you are and what's the support to where I'm using it, and not being, you know, just painful. Most of us have horror stories of software transitions at our company. They cost 10 times as much as you think they should, or let's say they cost double what you think they should and take 10 times as long. And everybody says, I'll never do that again. Okay. Nobody wants a software change. Transition. So between Chris's easy use and my transition, you've got it covered. And I think MaintainX is a solution that fits both of them.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that.
That's awesome. Those two very good points. And I guess just to double click on one of, ease of use is a really difficult thing to put your finger on. What does that mean to you? And how, if I'm going to, if you look at a variety of different CMMS solutions out there, a lot of them will tell you they're easy to use. So what is it that when you're thinking about that evaluation process, that kind of signals to you that it's easy to use when you're working through that?
I actually have a really good example of this. So
yeah.
I love my daughter to death. And of course, I'm going to say that I think she's the smartest kid in the world, but I'm going to be honest that she's 12 years old. We enjoy time together, and, the wife and I will sit down with her sometimes and just chat. And sometimes I'm having to do a little bit of business while I'm with her. So she had interest in, Dada, what are you doing? She saw I clicked on an app and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I just had a request come in and I need to get this populated and approved so the guys can do it. And she knows my guys. And she's like, hey, can I see that? With the minutest of help, she populated that workload. Now it became fun for her. So there's been plenty of times that I've been home and she's like, hey, Dada, can I play with that galley? No. It's not a game. Not a game. And please, if I ever have this laptop open at home, do not touch unless I'm around. But nonetheless, she's 12 years old. She doesn't know anything about any of these industrial things. Has she helped me do stuff before? Sure. But that's a true story, but more of a funny story. But here's the reality. I have some older folks that work for me. And not every time, but a lot of times you have a little bit of resistance there. Just not exposed to computers. Some people don't even know fully how to use their phone. I haven't encountered that problem yet. I haven't. We're currently we're currently working on rolling MaintainX out to all of our US sites, and I'm on most of all those calls. I haven't had anybody come to me and say that, hey, I can't understand this. So when I say ease of use, how easy is it to schedule stuff? How easy is it to add an asset? How easy is it to add people? How easy is it to write a reactive work order? There's some CMMSs out there that I have I have a background in some computer stuff, and I found it easy to use. But as we were trialing it, you almost had to be a computer programmer to get this to work. And that's just not, it could do some cool stuff. But at the end of the day, if I can't get people to use it, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about with ease of use.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And kind of piggybacking on that, Wolf had another question here. Do you see the use of CMMS helping attract and retain new talent to maintenance and reliability?
So I guarantee, well,
sounds like your daughter might be joining.
Go ahead.
Your team.
Yeah. No, I mean, so here's the thing: is sometimes I use other plant help for tasks that we're doing if they're slow out in the warehouse. It kind of makes sense, spread a little bit of the labor around. Some of those folks haven't had an opportunity because their job just doesn't require them to use MaintainX. So I'll give them access temporarily while they're with me to use it. Everybody is into it. Everybody enjoys doing work that way. They're trying to get me to invent ways for their work to come out to them that way, even though they have nothing to do with maintenance and reliability. So from that standpoint, I would say yes, that a person who knows how to, is used to doing maintenance type activities and understands what it was to do it in paper form, sees a CMMS, they're likely going to want to gravitate towards that. I mean, you might have your personal opinions that differ, but I think the majority of would gravitate towards that.
Yeah, here's what I found to be the reality, and these are my numbers, not scientifically backed, but every single maintenance technician comes into you hire them, and they want to fix things. They want them to run well, and they want to improve them, and they want to feel valued that they're a part of that. Okay. That's what maintenance people don't like when things are broken. They don't like forced overtime. They don't like working Christmas Day. So if they see a tool that allows them to do less administration time and get things running well, more efficiently, and we work on real problems, that are interrupting those 200 resets I was talking about. Those things are just nagging at an electrician. And so you remove that, their lives a little better. I'm part of a team that's winning. So absolutely. If they see this as a tool to, hey, we're jumping into the 21st century, we're being efficient, they're listening to us. Whenever I do a 5-minute reset, somebody is listening to that. I don't, imagine the interruption if you're an electrician and you're trying to do a job, and 10 times during the shift, you get pulled off to do a 5-minute reset. What's your quality of life? You're like, you're saying some bad things about Joe, the plant manager.
So, makes sense. Yeah, that's great. I as you're talking about getting, less time on the administration side, more times getting things fixed. You're talking, Chris, you mentioned capturing data. You're capturing more data, and I know Joe, you're big on that data side as well. Like, what we've got data, we're getting the data. We're using MaintainX. How do we use this data to make decisions? How does that influence workflows? If I'm a manager, we started doing this. What is that? How do I start if I'm not someone who's used to making data-driven decisions, because I haven't had that? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. One area is reactive versus repeatable. A healthy maintenance management system, healthy PM system, a way that you can gauge whether you're doing the right checks is the comparison of reactive versus repeatable. If you have far more reactive and only a few repeatables, the obvious reason is that you're not checking the right things. I think I just checked, and I think we have 41,000 repeatables currently, and we only have like 700 reactive. Now, what I can do further is I can dig into that reactive and try to see if there's a cadence. Maybe I have a bearing that's going out every 3 months. Well, now I have some data that I can compare, and I can decide whether I need to change that bearing at 2.5 months, or am I not greasing and servicing that bearing enough? I can kind of make sense out of that through the data. Cost, simple cost. What am I spending? What am I spending on doing? So I don't know, let's say I'm greasing a dock plate every week and it's costing me $200 every time I send a guy to go grease that. The comparison between, is that adding any value, and the cost that it's costing me, I'm likely going to come up with that I need to spread that out a little further. Just data available to most CMMSs in a whole, believe it or not, parts and the parts we stock and why we stock them, that's probably bigger than people realize. So I've spent a lot of time in this world of maintenance. I've gone to school for a lot of different things. I think I'm fairly grounded in my skill set. Most times, that's not worth anything if I don't have a part to do something about what's broken.
Yeah.
That's great, I can tell you. I can write it down and say we need to get this, but that's not how that should run. You should identify parts that you need, parts that are critical to your operation, parts that are going to shut your lines down and cost your company money, and have those parts available. So when they go down, you can make that repair and they're back up and running. But how do they kind of feed into each other? How do you know how often you need that part if you don't have something that records how often you use that part? And then even further, that you can search against it. That's some of the, the visibility that, depending on how you set your organization up, multiple people can have a look at, singular people can have a look at. You can assign somebody to keep a look at it. Like Joe's lately I've been watching a ton of Joe's videos. Let me tell you, I know this isn't about Joe, but if you're not following Joe on YouTube, I'm telling you, go do it.
Yeah.
But there's,
it's hours and hours of fun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It is.
For sure. But yeah, there's tons of things. You could even filter against assets that you don't have repeating work orders against currently. You can make a decision on why you don't. Maybe you just got missed. A lot of times we talk about that's what we've always done. That doesn't make it right.
Yeah. Here's my thinking on that. I had this phrase that I really tried to push into people to understand is the urgent always trumps the strategic. So the emergency of the day, the passion of the day, this equipment's broken, get everybody working on it. And the strategic things just get let go. And then at the end of the year, guess what? We failed because of motor failures and lube, just like last year, just like the year before that. And what a CMMS system can do with the data from it can keep you focused, like, hey, we're not making progress, or we are making progress. Hey, one of our strategic goals this year was to do 100% of our lube PM. 100%. We're not going to have another lube failure. That's those things I pound on the table to talk about, is not from neglect. And so, hey, okay, guys, let's keep that drumbeat going. At the end of each month, did we do all the lube PMs? Yes. Did we do all the lube PMs? Yes. It keeps you focused on what is going to hurt you based on history. That's what data-based decision-making is. It's getting out of the emotion of today. This equipment's down right now. Hurry up and get it fixed. Pull everybody off PDM. All those guys work doing vibration routes. They're not doing anything. Put them on this. And that's what I think the CMMS helps put in the discipline of you reflect. Maybe it's every week. Hopefully you're reviewing your KPIs on a weekly basis, but maybe at least every month you're saying, boy, we wanted to increase our lube compliance and we didn't. Boy, we wanted to increase our PDM work or condition monitoring work from 1% to 15%. We got a 2%. So it really keeps you grounded on the data long term, because you got this massive bias towards urgent work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess like if you're talking to someone who was just promoted, maybe they're a young person or they're just someone who's got a lot of experience on the tools, and now they're kind of moving into management and they're putting a CMMS in it for the first time. KPIs are kind of, more production oriented, less around the maintenance side. So they don't have a lot of guidance there from management. What would you say is sort of the top two things to start paying attention to from a reporting standpoint, from a data standpoint of what you're seeing from that CMMS, to kind of help them get their legs underneath them?
Well, I could take that one first just to kind of reverse order.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Go for it.
The first thing I would do if I was a young person and promoted up into a planner role, supervisor role, is you got to understand the business case. Okay. So you go to your maintenance manager, your production manager, maybe it's your counterpart that's running the production assets. Talk with them. What are the problems? What are we trying to solve here? What do you want? Do we want to reduce cost, or do we? Sometimes organizations I've been a part of organizations where they didn't care what costs were. They wanted the reliability to go up. Oh, okay. But some, if you're in a commodity business, you want everything. You want lowest cost, and some people are willing to sacrifice some reliability for the lowest possible cost. So you really got to understand the business case. Your plant may be at 100% capacity. It may be at 50% capacity. So at 50% capacity, you got more downtime to do work. So you got to understand what are the KPIs that the plant manager, ultimately the plant manager, what's he have or she have that determines success. Okay. So that, to me, you got to start with what's the rules of the game. Am I playing basketball? Am I playing baseball?
Yeah.
And then once you understand that, the KPIs that you need to track become easy. You may have to track unplanned downtime. Oh, that gets everybody yelling. Or maybe unplanned downtime is not that big of a deal because we got so much excess capacity, we're really trying to lower cost. Oh, well, then it may be amount of planned work, it may be parts that you're using, could be costs, a whole number of things that could be. So trying to say which tool or which KPI is most important without knowing the business case is a fool's errand. You'll never get there. You got to know the business case first.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that, Joe. It's not necessarily a slow process. It's I think if you spend your time in the beginning on the quality of what you're inputting, the reporting end of it will come to life relatively quickly. I think an important thing to understand is that you're never going to hit the nail on the head right away. It's an organic system. So you have to develop this thing. You hope to start off pretty clean, and then you're going to, over time, because you're going to have some data to look at, you're going to develop some things that need to change. And I think in some realms, that's the goal. Trying to have the visibility to identify what might be, getting done as well as it could be. And that comes from data. Now, if you have data in such a way that you could reference it, currently, and maybe through this process of getting started with this particular, if we're talking about MaintainX, getting started with them, you might identify some stuff through the old data that you need to make sure that you're covering in the new data. But it does take a little time. It takes a little time.
Now, one follow-up to that is if I gave you the best case is, this new person comes in as supervisor, find out what what winning looks like. Say you don't have it. Say everybody's too busy for you and you're just a lone wolf out there. Somebody says, sink or swim, do whatever you want. I don't have time for you. Well, there's a couple basic ones that are always important, like PM compliance. Okay, that's always going to be a big one,
Right.
So if you can take PM compliance from 50 to 70%, That's rarely a bad thing. Okay. Also, I would say planned work versus unplanned work. So how much of your work hours are planned and unplanned? That's all. I don't know that I've ever seen that be a bad metric. And I'm adding percent condition monitoring because I was really trying. I was at my last couple plants. I didn't like PMs. I wanted to get rid of every one of them if we could. Now that's not practical on some of them. There's legal things you have to do, but
Right.
wanted to. So what percentage of our work was coming from condition monitoring? So those are a couple that are always good, but start with the business case if you can.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. And as far as what kind of reports are you thinking that would make sense to share with management? Are there reports, are there specific KPIs that, again, going back to your earlier comments about having that collaboration at the start of saying, hey, what do we care about? Are there specific KPIs that you find are really help showcase you as the maintenance manager in a good light to management, relative to other ones that are more interesting to yourself and your team?
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna say I think uptime downtime comparison is something our plant managers enjoy. The repeatable versus reactive. I know that at my sites they like to see that because it's a view of what work we're doing. The cost per job, they sometimes like to look at that. I know that like here at this site that I mainly stay at, the plant manager jumps on sometimes and just fans through the assets to see what's up and down because mechanics. Well, wait a second, Nick, maybe I shouldn't bring that up.
That's okay.
So I happen to be in a position where I'm beta testing function within assets where you can have conditional, whether it's up or down. I know Diego's enjoying going through and looking and being able to see what's up. Like he may search against forklifts and be like, oh, we have a couple forklifts down. But the even better part is he can click on the asset and he can go see why it's down, because at the bottom of the asset, you're obviously going to have the history of all the work orders that are against that forklift. But yeah, that sort of thing, I know that they here for the company I work for, they appreciate being able to see reporting against that type of stuff.
What I would and how I would answer that, a couple things. The language of the plant manager is not necessarily KPIs. The language that I like to say, their language is dollars, but it's also compliance, like safety and environmental compliance. So let's say environmental and safety compliance. We'll put that just aside here because those are table stakes for playing the game. You need to speak in dollars, okay? If your maintenance budget is going up 20% a year, and you say, "Boy, my planned work went from 72 to 92, and your cost went up 20%, and the downtime on the asset went down," that's something's wrong in there. Talk to me in dollars. So I highly encourage people to convert everything they do to dollars. As an example, this is a real one, really happened. We went through a change in how we set up our motors, and we were averaging 10 motors failing a year in this big fume control system, 10 a year. We went in and made some changes. There was a lot of contamination issues with aluminum oxide getting in there, just tearing the heck out of things. But we went from 10 to 1, okay? We go from 10 to 1. Does anybody notice? Does the plant manager notice if you went from 10 failures to 1? The answer is no. The leadership team doesn't know the failures that you don't have. Okay? It's like if nobody goes and thanks, raise your hand. You got to do this virtually. I can't see anybody. Raise your hand if you called the power company yesterday, thanking them for doing a good job, giving you power 24 hours a day yesterday. Nobody does that. Okay. So you're in sales. If you're in maintenance and reliability, you're in sales. So when you go from 10 motors to 1, what you do is you say, okay, our average downtime, average business impact of a motor failure, just say is $100,000. I mean, this is a big plant for is $100,000. So you come out and you'd say in your weekly report, monthly report, whatever you do, say, hey, we put in this change. We put in this change. We are on a run rate to go from 10 motors to 1 a year, 100,000 a piece. That's $900,000. That's the language that managers listen to, and you've got to connect those dots. If you are not in sales, if you don't have a sales hat, like, Chris has got a bunch of hats behind him. One of those needs to be a sales hat. And you cannot assume that the leadership team notices, oh my gosh, we were 100% PM compliance the last 3 months. We were 100% scheduled work the last 3 months. That's ridiculous. But say you were that and your cost went up by 10%. They're just going to yell at you for your cost going up 10%.
Right. Yeah.
So speak in dollars, and you may, in that scenario I just laid out, some good KPIs, connect the dots. Say, hey guys, it's not working. The last couple months hasn't been successful, but if we zoom out to 6 months, we've got this trend happening, this trend in quality, this trend in output, this trend in our cost. You have to sell maintenance and reliability because it's not obvious. It's a lot like safety. If safety incidents go down, was that just luck, or did you pull a few levers to make that happen?
Right.
And safety is really good at saying, hey guys, we started these toolbox talks, we put in place hard hats, or we put in place gloves, and look at our hand injuries, they went down. You have to sell it. Okay. If you're not good at sales, your reliability effort is going to be canceled the next business downturn.
It's true. And, I think it's kind of great, because one of the subjects I wanted to kind of touch on next, you're kind of leading into that is what is, now that you're going from this world of fighting fires, managing reactive nonstop, what are some of those things? What does that unlock for you as far as planning for the future and thinking more strategically about your business? And I hear sort of what you're saying, Joe, here is that by being able to zoom out, you're able to take those trends over time and actually make more, a compelling argument for, cost savings or reliability improvements. Is there anything else that kind of comes to mind just around, like, what does that unlock for you once you get past that fighting fires every day?
People only have so much energy. Okay. And, I'll use a reliability engineer example. And, a lot of plants have reliability engineers, and I have a test for reliability engineers. So if you're a reliability engineer, this question's for you. What did you do yesterday? And what most reliability engineers will say is, well, I came in, I led some email, went to the daily meeting. They were having some problems out there, and the mechanics didn't know how to fix something. So they wanted my opinion. I did that. And then I own the protocol for lock and tag out on this equipment. Then I did this environmental issue, and I went to this meeting, and I have this project, and that's what I did yesterday. And I say, you're not a reliability engineer. So you're not a reliability engineer works in the CMMS and works on the strategic problems, and that's all they do. The reason I mention that is when you take out the chaos, they have more time, to work on reliability issues. I can't tell you the number of times I go up to a reliability engineer and they said, well, I fixed all the urgent emergency stuff. It's 3:45 in the afternoon. Maybe I'll have a better day tomorrow. And so when you can take out the chaos, you get a chance to look at the system. Okay. And that's what's so key about reactive maintenance is a death spiral. I can't tell you how many, I mean, I'll go into a plant and they'll say, Joe, I understand all these best practices that we should be doing. As soon as we get caught up on our reactive maintenance, we'll deploy best practices. And I'm like, you're going to be in worse shape tomorrow, and you're going to be in worse shape the day after that. You just keep going down this death spiral because reactive maintenance just it's 2x tomorrow, 3x the next day, and so stepping out of the chaos is what a CMMS system can enable.
You know, and honestly, it for me, it takes some of the emotion out. So Joe had said earlier that maintenance folks want to fix things. He's absolutely right. But sometimes we're trying to save a sinking ship. And it's easy for me to look and see via CMMS if that activity is happening. You know, I have tons of evidence available to me to determine whether I should retire a piece of equipment or not. You know, there's many reasons why you might retire a piece of equipment, but there's absolutely a component of spending too much money on that equipment to keep it running. So, you know, CMMS, the historical allows you to make decisions like that.
Absolutely.
So that's a good point. And we have, I know we've kind of talked about this from a perspective of you know, large enterprise organizations and plants. And we got a question from the audience here. I think we have a few moments that we could answer from a guy named Tyson Hunter here. And he says, how do you see CMMS helping a small multifamily business? 2 full-time, 2 part-time maintenance people. He's dealing with apartments, not a plant. Is this some, you know, would you all think of using a CMMS to manage, you know, maybe something that wasn't as intensive as a plant? How would you know, what would your advice be to someone that asked you that question?
So honestly, I've often considered whether CMMS is the right moniker for this. One of the biggest reasons I say that is because it's at its core, it's a task manager. So when you ask me, is this okay for a small business? When you ask me, is this okay for, I don't know, marina? The answer is always going to be yeah. It's going to be yes. This is a moldable platform. We can do things in here to make it suit whatever you're trying to do. So if you've got part-time employees, you got full-time employees. If there's only 4 of you, so you set those all up as users and you send the work out accordingly. It's something that if you're even discussing this and asking this question, get yourself involved with somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be Maintain X. I recommend Maintain X, but it doesn't have to be. But get a demo from somebody, and I think quickly you'll pick up what you can actually do with this. And it doesn't necessarily have to revolve around 130 something sites across the country and worldwide. It doesn't have to be that.
Yeah, here's an example. This happened to me today. Okay, I had a scheduled maintenance on my HVAC system at home. I have an upstairs and downstairs unit. The guy shows up with his phone, and he's doing these checks, and there he found a problem with my upstairs unit, and he on his phone showed me the last 5 years worth of records. Here's what we've done in the past. Here's what I want to do this time. Okay, so just super organized, and I paid by credit card right then and there. Super cool. Okay, compare that to Jim Bob that shows up at your house and says, well, it's broke. I don't know what we've done to this in the past, but here's what I'd recommend going further. Now, it's a competitive advantage to me for a small business to be organized, to show the clients that you're organized, that you're watching out. You see, here's the last 5 years that we've been to your house, or 5 years that we've been to your apartment complex, or whatever you're doing. Okay, so I think that is huge. That was an example from today. The other thing that comes to mind at a lot of these smaller mom and pop places with 2 maintenance mechanics, what's the turnover? Okay. A CMMS system is a place to put in the best current technology of how to do, what's the equipment maintenance plan look like on all the assets. So you document it. We're going to do this weekly. We're going to do this monthly. We're going to do this once a year. Here's the steps. Somebody leaves the organization, got it all written down.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, I can't tell you how many times we will have a failure at the plant, and it ended up being a lube failure. And everybody says, gosh, we haven't had this fail in 10 years. What happened? Joe went on medical leave for 6 months, and Joe was the guy that lubed it, and nobody knew he was lubing it, but he did it.
Right.
And he leaves the organization, and we have a $200,000 failure because he needed a new knee replacement. Real example.
Right.
So CMMS is really, it's your electronic form of your equipment maintenance plan. And I think you can turn that into a competitive advantage, think about how you can. And I just told you how my HVAC people were turning it into, looked extremely professional, extremely informed decision, and helped me, and I'll stick with them because of their knowledge and organization and technology.
That's great. And I think you're bringing up a great point, which is it's the theory of why CMMS is useful is really the value. It's the scale obviously magnifies the costs associated with the failure to perform rigorous asset, to maintain your assets and things like that. But it's a theory that applies across anything that needs to be maintained, which last time I checked, pretty much everything that's physical. It needs someone to take a look at it every now and then. Otherwise, it's going to go to the dogs. So, well, I appreciate y'all's time today. We had some great panelists. There's some great questions from the audience. We had a great opportunity, I think, to dive into to some great answers and experience from y'all's end. So, if you have anything else you want to wrap up with, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I think we're all set here, and appreciate your time.
Definitely. Right. Appreciate you having us. Appreciate some time with my friend Joe here.
Yeah, hey, new friends, right? You can see who works harder by looking at their office, man.
Oh, you're working hard, my friend. I've been watching it. You're working hard.
Yeah. And I do, like we reference, I have a YouTube channel. Check it out. Just type in JOEKUHN. You'll see a whole lot of videos on there. I've got 350 plus videos, something out there. We'll
put a link to that channel on our video that we send out as well with the recording here, so people can check that out, as well as a link to Chris Wilcox's podcast as well. So
that's right, I did. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I've listened to a few of those. All right,
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and everyone, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
All right, thanks.
Take it easy, everybody.
Here.